So many of the guests on the show have taken their own life challenges and made them into their life work. And sometimes we have to walk through the fire to find what calls us to be who we're meant to be and to find joy in what lights us up or fills that void in our life or fills that bucket. When you choose a therapist or a coach, ones who have had their own struggles and hurdles provide a certain amount of comforting empathy that's relatable and very real. And while today's conversation is a bit weighty at times, I assure you that in the end, our guest shows us that with resilience and resolve, we truly can make lemonade out of lemons. Health, wellness, career, relationships, and everything in between. We're removing the taboo from what really matters in midlife. I'm your host, Michelle Folan, and this is Asking for a Friend. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today's guest is a coach, educator, and a partner in building strong, connected, supportive families. Lisa Bosse helps her clients navigate the complex relationships, communication challenges, and conflict that are common in families and family businesses. Welcome to the show, Lisa Bosse.
Thanks, Michelle. Good morning.
Good morning. Nice to have you here on a bright, sunny Saturday.
Yes, it is nice. Thanks.
Thanks for being flexible with your schedule. I appreciate that. I always start off the show with our guests just telling the audience a little bit more about you and your journey to where you are today.
Sure. Well, thank you for the introduction. You shared a lot of it there, but I'll supplement a bit. I am a certified professional coach practicing in Cincinnati, Ohio. As you mentioned, I am specifically focused on nurturing families and family businesses, families who are in business together. That passion for family business really comes from three things. First of all, my life experience as a young woman. When I first married, I owned a family business, small business with my husband. At the time, it was very difficult. Put a lot of stress and strain on our young marriage. We were broke and struggling as we got started in life anyway, and we weren't funded enough to sustain a business. But we lasted 2 years and finally closed up shop. It was a blow to my ego, to be sure, but learned so much from the experience. The best thing I learned was that it's okay to try things and fail, because I never went hungry or missed a mortgage payment or anything like that. I was thankful for that experience. Also in my family, my sister and her husband and their children have a family business, and they are at the time of life where they were just getting ready to transition from one generation to the next. They learned very quickly how difficult a thing that actually is. I have some experience with that because for 8 years, up until just very recently, the beginning of this new year, I was the program director at the Gehring Center for Family and Private Business. That is a nonprofit affiliate based within the University of Cincinnati's Lindner College of Business, and we serve family and private businesses, and really our hallmark, our claim to fame, is helping people transition from one generation to the next. In that time that I spent there, I saw the very best business owners in the city, smart, capable, well-intended, wonderful parents, come into this space where all the complex dynamics of family life is now layered into family business. And you know how hard it is to build great cultures and businesses. It's just a very difficult thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
Learned a lot there. Oh, it's huge. But then finally, last but not least, I mentioned I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am a Cincinnati girl. For generations, my family has lived here. I'm born here, raised here. And I know in my heart that for this to continue to be a great city, it's going to take strong families and it's going to take strong family businesses, because they are both the heart and the economic engine that makes any community thrive. I'm invested.
And we see it every day here.
Sure.
Our city is not alone, but we did pretty well through the pandemic, and you see people still opening up these small family-owned businesses, and it's great to see, but how do you keep them going?
The stories that came out of COVID were unbelievable. We had to pivot our entire curriculum and jump online. And we spent the first 6 months just peer learning, helping families tell their story of how they were making it through, and then celebrating their successes together for the next 6 months. It really brought us together, really, more than it divided us.
Absolutely. Your own life experiences led you to coaching then?
My life experiences led me to coaching. I will tell you that life and business and career are increasingly intertwined. They always have been, but more so now and at a much faster pace. I'm happy to share this story with you, but there are parts of it that sound sad, and I want to emphasize before I jump in that it's not a sad story. This is a story of becoming unstuck. It's a story of maturing and coming to understand who I really am. Most of all, Michelle, it's a story of a mother learning from her child who stepped out regardless of what the world thought of who he was destined to become. And there I was, having lived my life as a bit of a chameleon, people pleaser. I'm sure you know plenty of people like that.
Yeah.
Afraid to express my own opinions and exist for myself. Watching him through his journey just gave me the courage to step into who I was meant to be. It's a story of triumph and transformation, and that's what I hope comes across as I start to share the details. All that learning was the cause of the transition into coaching. It wasn't learnings that I achieved through coaching, although coaching does teach you quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
Should I just dive in?
Dive in. I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
All right, good. Well, I mentioned my first husband, and when we were newlyweds, we owned a very small business. It lasted about 2 years. We closed up shop. And when that happened, I had been an English major in college, interested in writing and editing, so I had to find a job, and I pursued a career writing with newspapers and magazines. I did that until my daughter was born. I had a daughter named Libby, around 35. It followed a period of infertility, lots of doctor visits, several miscarriages later, put added stress on the family. But probably the big deal there was I was the classic enabler in an alcoholic home. That marriage was marked by a whole lot of drama. When things started to get really ugly, Libby was around 3 at that time. It wasn't the environment I wanted to raise my daughter in, and so we divorced. There I was as a single mom. My little salary working for these small newspapers wasn't going to cut it, or the long hours. I was very fortunate to land a copywriting position in the in-house marketing department of International Paper Company, which I don't know if you know anything about International Paper, but it's huge. We had over 50,000 employees in 54 countries, I think, at the time. I worked for the distribution business. It was a company called Expedex, an arm of International Paper, but it was a $9 billion arm, to give you some sense of the scope of this company. I share that it's important because it was in working there. I was there for 10 years. I benefited from a ton of leadership training. They really invested in their people. They had a communications team that was the scope of, I don't know other companies that, I'm sure the other big ones do as well, but we had a team of over 50 people in communications.
Wow.
Super invested in, developing their people. I just learned a lot. Over the years, I was able to move up the career ladder a bit until the last probably 5 years. I was directly supporting the president of that distribution business and her leadership team. Now, all internal communications, business communications, that kind of thing. It was a great run for a lot of years. But the new president, she had actually been put in place to lead us through an acquisition. And that acquisition was with our largest competitor. I'm sure, as you know, being in business, that when you acquire your largest competitor, it's for the synergies that you can gain. For the next several years, we were right-sizing the organization, and we were closing down Canada, or all of our retail stores, or eliminating half of our workforce where we had redundancies. In communications, can you imagine what my job was?
All right.
It was to tell these people this and travel with her as we made these announcements. It was eating at my soul, to say the least.
Oh, it's so hard.
It is so hard. I learned a lot. It was kind of cool to see behind the curtain because we ultimately took that company public. And so that was neat. And there was a lot of joy that came from uniting the new team. But I'm trying to find the silver lining there. Overall, it sucked, Michelle. I got to tell you, it was hard. But I'll come back to that in a bit because throughout most of those years, I had remarried. That happened in about 2009. Libby was about 10 years old and had this nice little suburban life going on. Around fourth grade, Libby started saying things to me. I remember one day in particular, I was driving her to school and she said, I'm not like the other girls. And I'm her mom. And I said, of course you're not. You're you. She was creative. She was an artist. She spent all of her time drawing, or she had her nose in a book. Always had her nose in a book. She didn't socialize much. I remember looking out before I remarried in this little cul-de-sac that we lived on, and there'd be 20 kids playing ball, riding bikes, and Libby would be leaned up against a tree with her nose in a book. She just was the outsider looking in.
Mm-hmm.
Which broke my heart as a mom to see that. You want your kid to look like they can socialize well. But I also understood it because I was a bit like that coming up. Anyway, she grew up. Those differences started to become a little more dramatic. And by the time she hit middle school, just right at 7th grade, I'm different started coming out as I'm transgender. Now, back then, this is 2012.
Okay, so that was a while ago.
It was a while ago. And transgender is something we hear about all the time now. But it wasn't in the media back then. It wasn't being debated. Our politicians weren't talking about it. It wasn't a subject of controversy.
Did Libby know the actual word?
Not until she got older and got on the internet.
Okay.
Actually, she started following some people on social media, and then she knew the word. But it was when she was preteen, approaching adolescence.
Because I was curious if at that point they can actually define it as a word or just how they feel.
I can't speak to all the transgender people in the world, but for my child, no, it was just a internal knowing I'm different. And other things, like she would never, no interest in makeup, clothing. It was a fight to get her to shop for clothing, or bathing suits were a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we as girls remember shaving your legs and how that was important, and wearing makeup. As a mother, I probably was forcing it on her to some degree. And she was like, I don't want that. Leave me alone. Just get away, back off.
Was there trauma as she was starting to develop breasts and everything that she's like, oh God, I don't want this body?
She never articulated that to me, Michelle. If there was, she kept it private.
Okay.
That's never been the things she shared about me. I'm sure for many, I know for many it is. But she went back and forth for a good while. She would say, I'm transgender. And then 2 days later, she would not be transgender. She would be bisexual. And then 2 days after that, it's like, I was getting my period. I was just having a moment. I'm straight. And she bounced back and forth for probably 6 months. She was figuring things out.
Sure.
Dipping her toe in the water, seeing how her mom was going to respond to her. I did the thing that most moms do, called the pediatrician, and we took her to a counselor, and eventually we were referred to Children's Hospital in Cincinnati, who has a transgender health clinic, wonderful resource, actually very well known in this region, especially for transgender health care. We educated ourselves. We understood all the significant risks that we were facing, particularly with mental health. Suicidal ideation is a huge, huge issue. Mm-hmm. That they made sure we were aware of. We went about getting her the help that she needed. And then by the time she entered high school, so now we're 2 years into this, she entered freshman year as Jonas. That was our last name at the time, Jonas. It was an easy transition just by not completely changing her name because she wasn't fully out yet. Mm-hmm. She'd confided in a few close friends and family members, but largely this was a family secret we were keeping. But as a freshman, she got super involved in musical theater. And that really helped with things because that is a community that's historically friendly to the LGBTQ community. And in getting involved there, Jonas really began to sparkle and became a little bit of a celebrity even because in our community from kindergarten on, she had gone to school with all these kids.
Sure.
The kids, the parents, all of a sudden they noticed this quiet, reserved child just changing in front of their eyes and coming out and being who they are and getting big lead roles in the musical productions and couldn't really sing worth a damn, but didn't stop him from putting himself out there with everything he had. And I mean, we're in a very conservative town. There were people who whispered.
Sure.
I'm sure they thought I was a nutball for letting it all go on, and that's okay. But by and large, people saw this big change and they celebrated that. They loved that for her.
Yeah.
I would say for the most part, everybody was kind. But two really kind of critical people who weren't were her father and her stepfather. And in particular, her stepfather, who was living in our home with us. He knew the full truth, but he wouldn't acknowledge it. He wouldn't discuss it with us. He went to one doctor's appointment and said, I'm never going back there. She is just trying to act out for attention and you're indulging it. Basically, shame on you. I'll just say that paved the path for my second divorce because Libby was my life. Jonas was my life. I wasn't going to tolerate that. But at the same time, I didn't want to be twice divorced. I didn't want to disrupt a second home. I mean,
yeah.
From the outside looking in, we had the super normal life.
It was brave of you. It was brave. Your child is your number one priority. And you did what I think many, many moms would do is I've got to be there for my child. And I don't look at that as being indulgent. That is being a loving, caring mom who is helping your child through a journey.
Thanks, Michelle. It wasn't all roses. I screwed up a lot.
Oh, we all do, Lisa.
I screwed up a lot, and I appreciate the support. People are very quick to say, oh, you're such a good mom. If I had it all to do over again, I would do it the same way. I by no means was perfect. There was a lot that I had to overcome, which was the fear of the world judging me as a mother. That was playing into this. But we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
Fortunately, and I truly mean fortunately, when all this was going on, my husband at the time was falling in love with somebody that he met at work. At one point, let's say I uncovered a whole load of digital evidence, and I was shocked because he was the last person I suspected of having an affair. He was the sweater vest wearing conservative Catholic. It was the last thing I expected out of him. I was really shocked. And our marriage literally blew up that day when I discovered all of this. We both wanted the marriage over quickly, painlessly. We did it as quickly as we could. We sold the house and he went on to live his life. And I moved into the home that I had purchased after my first divorce. We moved back there. We had kept it as a rental property. I was right in the same school district and that actually worked out. But should we pause? Because now we're going into the second part of the story.
Oh, just keep going.
Okay. I had 3 siblings. I'm the youngest of 5. Right around the same time, we're in 2015, I had 3 siblings who started to have some strange medical things popping up. Also, at this time, my mother, who was in her very late 80s, almost 90, she had a major stroke. She had already become legally blind through macular degeneration, was starting to show signs of dementia. But when she had the stroke, paralysis accompanied that, and now she was in a wheelchair. The merger that was going on at my job, it was well underway now. We were moving our headquarters to Atlanta. I was invited to go, which was nice to be included, but as you can tell, probably wasn't the best time for me to leave in the middle of all this. So I took a severance package.
Oh my God. It's like, oh, let's just pile one more thing onto this pile of stuff that you've got going on.
Yeah, it was a lot of stress, to say the least.
I can only imagine.
I needed a job. I was out of work, and I didn't have a ton in savings, just going through my second divorce. Fortunately, one of the executives that I had been working with, it was one of her divisions that I worked with her to shut down. She had been volunteering for the nonprofit in town where I ended up working for so many years, the Gehring Center. They had a big role that was coming open. The current president was looking to retire. He was ready to just start transitioning some of his historical knowledge, and he needed to pass that on with somebody. And I would oversee operations, marketing, and then develop all of our programs. And it was right up my alley. And fortunately, after a long series of interviews, I was able to land the job, and I started working there on June 1st. Now we're starting the upward climb.
Yeah.
We're heading into summer. We're in our new home and my new job. But Eli was like, or I'm sorry, Jonas at that time, he was going by. He was like, look, Mom, I know your life is basically a shit show. And, I'm really sorry, but I'm coming out. Like, I'm out and I'm loud and I'm proud. And you need to get on board because I'm going up the street and I'm going to go cut all my hair off. And I am going to come out as Eli. I want everybody to know, and I'm not hiding anymore. And so you can't hide about this either. So that was happening. That train was leaving the station.
Yeah.
He was pushing me to get on testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
I am a well-endowed woman, and he was following in my footsteps, and he was ready to change his body, his physical appearance. I just had visions of what that was going to be like and the struggle for him and for all of us. But that train was leaving the station, and right about that time, my siblings started to receive the diagnosis about what was going on with them. All three of them were diagnosed with liver disease. They were in various stages of liver failure. We have diabetes, runs in my family.
Yeah.
Diabetes isn't a direct cause of liver disease, but that whole metabolic syndrome, fatty liver, which is in epidemic proportions now. It's like the fastest growing thing out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That affected all of them, three of the five of us. My brother Mike, my sister Meredith, and my sister Lynn.
Oh my gosh.
Ups and downs of life, right? Liver failure is rough. I don't know if you know anybody that's ever had it, but they were all pretty debilitated by it quickly. My mother, at the same time, she continued to have strokes. She got those ischemic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
She was just like worse and worse. My life then turned into the only daughter left in the family, really, was one of caretaker. And I'm not saying I did it alone, nieces and nephews and brothers-in-law, etc. But my sister Meredith, in addition to the liver disease, she was told she had a hole in her heart. She also had to run with cancer during this time, so she was not eligible for a liver transplant. Similarly, my brother Mike had heart issues, and he also developed liver cancer, which ruled him out for a liver transplant.
Oh my gosh.
You have to be very sick and also able to survive a transplant before they'll give you a transplant. They were ruled out, but my sister Lynn, fortunately, was healthy otherwise, and she was able to get on the transplant list. We knew it was going to be a long, hard road for her, but we were all very hopeful. Then we started that journey of seeing them through that. In August of 2016, my brother Mike passed. And if I haven't bored you yet, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about that night. My sister Lynn and I were there. Meredith was too sick to go. Lynn and I were there in the hospital with him. He had an only child, Nicole, and she was 7 months pregnant with his first grandchild.
Yeah.
Her husband, Kevin, was there with us as well. He was in the last hours of life, and when you're in hospice care, they do a really good job of keeping the patient comfortable. And he started to have a lot of, I wouldn't say he was seizing, but he was clearly agitated, and you could tell he was having trouble breathing. And the nurse came in at that moment, and we're like, hey, can you give him something? She got right on it, and I'm not kidding you, within seconds, he was dead.
Yeah.
And I thought, that poor lady, she knows she just killed my brother. We were thankful because he had been sick for so long and so sick. It was horrific to watch, and we just wanted his suffering to end.
Yeah.
But as you could imagine, the scene in the hospital room, it was not a good one. A few hours later, I drive home, and I get inside, and I'm changing to get into bed, and my phone rings. And it's my brother-in-law, who's married to my sister, Lynn. And he said, Lisa, get dressed, come back down to the hospital. Lynn, they called, and they have her liver ready, and she's going in for her transplant tonight.
Oh my God.
Another roller coaster. I get dressed, I run downtown, and we're in the hospital. My other sister came, and other family members were there, not my mom. She was in a nursing home by then.
Mm-hmm.
She's prepped for surgery. It's the middle of the night. It's like 3:00 in the morning. She's all prepped for surgery, and we say our goodbyes, and we wish her love and luck, and off she goes. And a half hour later, they come back out. And there was one test that they had to do after they put her under before they could start the work. And she failed that. She found out that she had pulmonary hypertension and they would not give her the liver for that reason.
Oh, no.
We had thought Mike died, went up to heaven, got a good word in for Lynn, and her liver became available. And we're like, hallelujah, prayers are answered. Then we all leave fearing that now it's just going to be a slow march to her death. The treatment for pulmonary hypertension that she had, if there's medical professionals listening, I'm sure I'll butcher it. I can't remember the name of the drug, but it was this really intense drug.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially for the better part of the next year, she was bedridden, completely out of her mind, had no control of her bodily functions. She just needed round-the-clock care. But after being on this drug for months and months and months, almost 9 months, in April of 2017, she came out of it and the pulmonary hypertension was gone.
Really?
It was. And it was within a few months of that they gave her another liver. A liver donor became available and she had a transplant. And I'm very happy to tell you that it's been 5 years. You would never guess it. She is thriving. She's healthy as can be.
Oh.
It was a happy ending to that story. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad we got a happy ending out of that.
There's another happy ending, so hang in there with me.
Okay.
My sister Meredith was still sick, but she was stable. My mom, she was a hot mess.
Well, I mean, come on. She was in her late 80s.
Well, now she's like 94 because several years had passed.
Uh-huh.
She's in a nursing facility, great, wonderful place, and she was getting round-the-clock care. So the burden off of me was really lifting.
Mm-hmm.
It was shortly after that Eli completed his transition, graduated from high school, and went off to college.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, there I was sitting on my couch looking around my empty house saying, okay, now what? What am I going to do now? I had a clock hanging in my wall in the kitchen. It's an old-timey clock. It's battery operated and it goes tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. And there I am, hyper-conscious that I am pre-diabetic and genetically predisposed to having these same kind of issues crop up for me. I was really conscious of time and how quickly it could pass and how few days we really have. And I really started thinking about, okay, what is it that you want to do? What is the impact that you want to make with your life? What are the experiences that you want to have? And you know what I came up with?
What?
Nothing. I had no idea. I had no friggin' clue.
Yeah.
Who I was or what I wanted. I could do anything I wanted to do. I was smart. I had money in the bank. People liked me. I am personable. I'm talented. I could do anything I wanted to do. Lived in the United States where there's so much opportunity. And I couldn't have told you one thing that was important to me to make sure I got done with the rest of that life that I had left. Knowing who your audience is, Michelle, how many women do you know that have some kind of moment like this? I mean, I think we get into middle age and most of us have flashes of it at least. Like, who am I?
Oh, yeah.
We spend our lives caring for others and seeing to other people, being the nurturers in our lives. We take the emphasis off of who we are and put our happiness hinging on what we're able to do for other people, and we get lost in the process. About this same time, through my work at the Gehring Center, I was working on the next year's speaker lineup, and somebody said, hey, there's this lady named Denny Tato. Denny Tato was a coach in Cincinnati. Do you know Denny?
I just interviewed her.
Oh, that's so funny. She's wonderful.
That show hasn't dropped yet, but yes, I have interviewed Denny Tato. She's consulted where my daughter works, and that's how I got to know Denny. But go ahead, though. Tell me your experience with Denny Tato.
I don't want to scoop it.
No, it's okay.
As you know, she's an expert in the Enneagram, a coach, speaker, and not only did I say, oh, this lady's a home run, I got to book her, so I did that immediately, but I also started working with her. I'd done leadership training and stuff through work, but it was the first time I personally invested in myself and doing my own self-development. Coaching transformed me. You know, I only worked with her for about 6 months. Prior to that, I had gone through a lot recently, so I had seen a couple of therapists. I just felt like I was going in, and I'm not dishing therapy. Therapy is important for people. For me, it just wasn't working. It wasn't about connecting to my past and figuring that stuff out. It was about where I was right now and where I wanted to go. And for that reason, coaching was just a better fit for me. It really transformed me from a broken down, lost, lonely lady to someone who was standing in her power. I dove deep, really deep into the Enneagram, and I came to understand myself, what motivated who I was and the choices that I made. And understanding the archetypes of the Enneagram helped me to release the judgment I felt about the choices that I had made. Why was I such a loser? I had married these two men who didn't care about me at all. Why did I submit myself to that? Why was I kowtowing to everybody and just trying to be this chameleon who was showing up the way I thought people wanted me to be? And I just slowly became less and less afraid of what other people thought. I started stepping into my truth and really expressing myself. And once I got a taste of that, I knew coaching was my calling. And that's what I wanted to do. I'm a 2 in the Enneagram, which is the helper.
Okay. I'm a 3 with a 2 wing.
You're a 3? Okay.
I get you. You 2.
I got elements of 3 in me for sure. We draw on our wings. I think I err more towards the 1. I'm a rule follower.
Yeah, we know where we drift a little bit. But I do have a comment here.
Sure.
Because I have done the Enneagram, and for people listening, if you go back and listen to a couple previous episodes with Denny Tato, you will understand a little bit more about the Enneagram and Denny's story. But I think for anyone going through this momentous life pivot that you were going through, no matter if you're going through a divorce or a career change or a child transitioning or whatever it is, for you to be able to make these changes, you have to embrace self-love.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that.
This is what you did. You got to know yourself, understand why you made the choices that you made, how you've reacted to situations, and understand that it's who you are. And we have to love that person.
Right.
I appreciate you telling that story because that's part of the premise of this podcast is for midlife women to figure this out.
It's so necessary, and our hardships are gifts. Those things transform us into who we are. They teach us where we can be strong, what our gifts are, what our superpowers are. Whenever we have a pattern that's repeating in our life, it's because it's preparing us to use that power to serve mankind. And I really believe that. Enneagram is a great tool for figuring that out. I'm very, very into it. I was hell-bent on becoming an Enneagram coach. I wanted to be a little junior Denny Tato and be just like her. But COVID hit.
Yeah.
I was either going to have to do everything online. I mean, travel was shut down. I had this program picked out and it was in LA and I wasn't down for that. I was just kind of head down, got through COVID. Work was really crazy then as we were shifting how we do things. And during that time, I discovered something called energy leadership. That's ultimately where I ended up focusing my coaching development. Now that takes us to where we are today. We're meeting as I am about 8 months into actively coaching clients and 2 months into doing it full time in private practice.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, it's the story of triumph. Everybody's got ups and downs in life. We all have our version of a story, but it really is a good story with a happy ending.
Well, I don't know if you know Sarah Brown. She does the podcast
Failing Forward.
Failing Forward. I've had her on the show as well. Her show was the basis for me actually wanting to do a podcast. We talk about failures or life missteps or trauma. We look at how we learn from those things and how we get stronger. We come out on the other side of things a much better person. You've just told us a story that a weaker person may not have been able to handle a lot of the things that you've been through. But Lisa, the way you tell it, I know you come across as well, this happened and then this happened. And I know it wasn't that casual or easy, but you've told the story so many times. I'm sure it's like, but anyway, I appreciate that because what you've done now is you are working with families, counseling them. You're counseling families with businesses. It adds a whole nother layer of complexity to family relationships that I can't even imagine. Tell us a little bit about that. How do you work people through that process?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify, I don't counsel. I'm not a qualified counselor. I'm a coach. There's a real difference. Coaches work with generally well-functioning people who are clear that they want to make a change, but they definitely don't know what that change is, and they certainly don't know what's getting in their way. The coaching process is about helping them uncover the internal blocks as well as the external blocks and making a plan for how they're going to accomplish their goals, which tend to not reveal themselves immediately. You can think you're going to be coached for one thing and it ends up being something completely different. And I am very invested in families and family businesses because of that experience. I feel like I spent my whole adult life chasing family and it eluded me either through divorce or miscarriage or death. When I see these family businesses, there's so much love there, so much love and so much pain and frustration, not knowing how to break through that. It's just, I don't know what else I could do. I am focusing my initial efforts there as I get it started. You know, I'm one person. I'm really focused on the family business space, and I intend to be for the first 2 quarters of my first year in business. But simultaneously, I am also working to develop a couple of curriculums for the family space that also have an element of community building in it, especially for middle-aged women. I think it's critically important, and transgender parents critically important, and those will kick off this summer. That's going on behind the scenes. The one that I mentioned for middle-aged women, I call the empty nest. I want to coach the person who I was before I became who I am today. And that's certainly who that group is for. And I remember at that time, spirituality is kind of like a parallel path to what I was working through. Not that this is about spirituality, but it is a pursuit of purpose. It is a pursuit of knowing who you are and finding fulfillment in your life. In Cincinnati, it's so common that people live here for generations. And so we have friends and family that we interact with for decades. And they might be in that same place in life where their kids are out of the nest as well. And they may still be married or they may be divorced. But it doesn't mean that they have developed at the same pace that you have. And they may not necessarily have the same interests that you have now, that you're at this new stage. It's really important to bring women together in a format where they can develop new community, because it's hard to make new friends when you're at this stage of life.
To your point, Lisa, I think that, like you said, they're at a different point in their life.
Mm-hmm.
My hope is that women realize that they got maybe another 30, maybe even 40 years here. And hopefully they are still willing to reach out and bridge that gap with other women, still make new friends and have community, because I think that's so important.
It's so important. It's so important. Eli used to tease me. He's like, what do you want to do? Start a Facebook group for lonely middle-aged women? And I'm like, well, not that, but something like that. It took me about 5 years to figure out what I really wanted it to be. And that's it. We need that connection with each other. And we need to have conversation that stimulates us and goes a little deeper than, hey, let's go to dinner or catch a movie or take a girls' weekend to go shopping. All those things are fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. We should continue those things, but there's more to life than that.
Yeah.
And some of us could care less, and some of us, that's all we think about. It's about finding your tribe of people who think about that.
I know. I agree. I would love for you to tell people where they can find you.
Sure. On the internet at lisa-bosse.com. There's a dash between Lisa and Bosse.
And Bosse is Bosse.
Bosse. That's easy enough. And they can just go to the website, click a link, and schedule some time with me just to talk and get to know one another and see where they are with things and whether or not we're a fit to work together. It's important to explore all your options.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not a fit, then they need to call Denny Tato because she's equally fabulous.
Okay. I will put your information in the show notes.
Okay.
So people will know where to find you. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so open and sharing your path, your journey to today, because we sometimes go through life and we suck this stuff up or we don't talk about it. And there's no shame in being open and honest about where we've been.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share the story. I hope it helps somebody, at least one person.
I'm sure it did.
And thank you for doing this work because it's really needed.
Thank you, Lisa.
Shining a light on it.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Follow Asking for a Friend on social media outlets and provide a review and share this show wherever you get your podcasts. Reviews and sharing help us grow.